broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's show. The date is Friday the 10th of January 2020. It is 7 p.m. here in Melbourne, but it is currently pouring with rain. Despite that, there are still 8 emergency bushfire warnings in the state. I'll do what I did last week to begin the show, which is put the emergency warnings that are on the Vic Emergency website here. So as you can see, it is still East Gippsland mainly that is affected by these bushfires that continue. They've got 3 different lights here. I'll see if I can just zoom that out here. So as you can see there, it's still in, north of East Gippsland. That's where the red are, which are emergency bushfire warnings. The yellow is what you call, they're just bushfires that are burning, watch and act. And then the yellow is advice, air quality. So that's the state of the bushfires in Victoria. They are, of course, still raging in 3 other states, being New South Wales, South Australia, particularly on Kangaroo Island, and there are also fires and also flooding, I'm told, in Western Australia, which is, that's quite bizarre. Now, we are live on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel. We are also live on Entropy, the YouTube enhanced software. I got the link working tonight. I know there was a few complaints on the Uncockables last night that it wasn't playing back on the Entropy, but that has changed tonight. I've got a call coming through. We're also on the D-Live channel as well, the Tim Wilms D-Live channel.
Wait.
Hello? Who's that? Oh. Now, while that person tries and calls back... Oh, here they are, here. Hello? Hello. Is that the Versatile Cowboy?
It's Versace Cowboy, Tim. I think you need to practice your names a little bit better, mate.
Oh, sorry. Versace Cowboy. Pardon my...
That's okay.
Can you switch your phone around to it horizontally so we can get a widescreen shot of you?
I'm having a bit of trouble out here in the rain, buddy.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I can see that you're...
Phones, I'm not sure what's going on right now. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you. I'll just check that everyone in the chat can hear you. Now, I just gave a bushfire update, which is where emergency services and police resources should be, but some of them have had to be dedicated tonight. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so some police resources have had to be dedicated to this Uni Students for Climate Justice rally, which is occurring right now at the State Library of Victoria in Melbourne City Centre. They're occurring nationwide. Now, Uni Students for Climate Justice is a Socialist Alternative front group. We're seeing the back of your head at the moment. Are you still there?
Hang on, Tim. I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you here. It's really loud.
Is that the rally there? That's the Melbourne one?
I'll try and get the rally for you.
So Anxious Aussie in the past hour, who is not only a YouTube channel but a frequent participant in our live chats. She streamed the Canberra Uni Students for Climate Justice rally. And so the Proud Boys and Avi Yemeni are at the Melbourne rally there. And as you can see, they're trying to claim that Melbourne's on fire. Australia's on fire, yet it's raining in the middle of Melbourne.
Yeah, that's right. It's not too good for their little climate change rally down here when it's freezing cold and raining. But you get that every time the alt left, I guess, or the left start participating in one of these things. It really, it doesn't do them justice what they're marching for. It seems to rain every time. It's like our mate Peter Grace has passed away and done his thing up in heaven and showed us what it's all about.
Yeah, it's pissing down there. I'm not sure if people in who are watching us can hear the rain pelting the studio roof. I can certainly hear it. I'm not sure if it's coming through now, but yeah, well, even though I'm in the comfortable climate-controlled studio, I can certainly feel the elements outside, and at the drive-in it was pretty wet.
Yeah, I hope it affects the bushfire. Well, I hope it gets to the bushfire-affected areas, though. The city kind of is not really on fire at the moment, as you can tell. But yeah, hopefully the rain goes to the right place. And Peter, if you're listening up there, mate, just move a little bit south Gippsland way and do your thing over them, please. I know you're up there.
Yes, You sent me some footage before where there was, I noticed that somebody that looked like him was there. I'll just play it for everyone now.
All right. Oh, someone's got a headband like mine. I don't know. There's a lot of this on the site. Right here.
Yeah, so that was more high quality footage you shot earlier on. Now, are there many police there? And they obviously the Socialist Alternative, who they are the organisers, despite the front group, Uni Students for Climate Justice. They don't like to be asked questions.
There's quite a bit of a presence, but it's not as much as previous rallies I've sort of been to, especially not for Melbourne standards. It's all pretty peaceful so far, but hopefully it stays that way. A couple of little people in the crowd are carrying on, as you could imagine, the usual contingents. But nothing overwhelming yet. The police have been great, as always. You can't commend them enough. But yeah, there's definitely a heavy presence, as you'd imagine, though.
Yes, well, as I said in my introduction, they should be. Obviously, the police are not on the front line fighting the fires, but they certainly have a role to play. And we all remember the 2009 Black Saturday Victorian bushfires, where the Police Commissioner Christine Nixon went out for dinner with friends on the evening of Black Saturday, February the 7th. Deserted her post, so we know that how important the police, working with all the other emergency services to make sure that people can get out of harm's way, because we should praise the emergency services and the first respondents in our own state of Victoria. And I just saw a press conference with Dan Andrews and Lisa Neville. Credit where it's due. They have made sure that. And I'll just bring up the figures now. There's only been 3 deaths in Victoria, and there's been 300 homes destroyed. There was 173 that died on Black Saturday. So obviously those 3 deaths are tragic, but it just shows that even government, being as incompetent as it is, has learnt some things.
Hey Tim, I'm sorry, but I can't hear a single thing. It's getting real loud out here, mate.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll let you go now. It just looks.
Are you okay?
They look really sort of dishevelled marching there. They're just sort of, like drongling along.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that. Sorry, but.
I'll ring me back if anything else. If there's any major developments.
It's definitely got a big anti-capitalist feel to it. I'm not really sure if they're out here for the fires or not, to be honest, mate. I think there might be a bit of a different agenda for them. That's the feel you get, like these people could be out there volunteering or something, but...
Well, they want the yeah.
Usually states usually come out, so...
The socialists, they haven't praised any of the big donors. In fact, they criticised Andrew Twiggy Forrest, the mining magnate from Western Australia, for giving $70 million. Would they preferred he donated nothing, but they want the government to fund everything. They don't believe in voluntary charitable good. They believe that it should all be forcefully taken from us.
Yeah, well, they don't believe in private property after all, do they? So what does that tell you? It's no surprise, you know.
Don't believe in... Yeah, well, I think they'd say their iPhones are theirs. I know that they have this argument that there's personal property, and then there's property that should be owned by the general people.
Hey, Tim, I apologise, mate. I can't hear a single thing out here. It's rather
All right, I'll let you go, but you've got the number here, so ring back if there's any further developments. Stay safe. They look like, very tough people. All right, you can't hear me. Well, there you go. That's what the Melbourne protest looked like. I haven't been keeping up front of the live chat there, but I noticed that the regulars are here. Peter V, Savnik. As I said, I've got Entropy working tonight. So I'll just put the link in again in the chat. Now I might take this time. Oh, I've got another Skype call. Hello?
Hello, Tim. It's Senator Slay. How are you?
Hey, how are you? What's up?
Yeah, I just got some breaking news. Actually, the forecast wasn't meant for rain. Apparently, Peter Grace was flying over in an aeroplane. So just that's actually not rain. It's Peter Grace's blood.
Why did you taste it?
No, but when it gets to the ground, you can actually see the yellow tinge.
I didn't know that he actually left his flat.
Well, today he had a special outing. He wanted to show his support to the other degenerates. But yeah, I thought I'd just let you know. I thought to let everyone know that's actually not rain. It's Peter Grace's urine.
Well, I'll definitely stay inside here, I think. Are you out of harm's way now?
I think it's best to safe. Yeah, I'm safe now. All right, good show, Tim.
All right, catch you later.
Bye.
Now, we're going to be joined in 15 minutes' time. I'm not sure if anyone on the chat here remembers in 2018, a prominent Melbourne Conservative personality was the young Conservative, David. He had a Facebook page where he vlogged about issues that he was passionate about. He attended a lot of the Melbourne Patriot events that occurred during 2018. He's moved back to his hometown of Perth. Now, the reason why I'm going to have him on in 15 minutes' time is because he had an encounter while he was in Melbourne with she's now the organizer of the Melbourne protest for this Uni Students for Climate Justice, Anneke de Manuel. I think that's how you say it. As you know, I'm terrible with names. The young Conservative went to Melbourne University with an It's Okay to Be White shirt, and the first person to be triggered by it was Anneke. Now, we're the only media outlet, I'd say, in Australia, the Unshackled, who've actually been naming who's behind these climate change protests, that Uni Students for Climate Justice is actually a socialist alternative group. No other media outlet has actually reported this, and this is a still here from 9 News covering the Sydney protest. As you can see, climate protests, thousands preparing for nationwide protest. And as you can see there, they're unfurling a socialist alternative banner with Karl Marx on it, or as he looks like their Santa, except he's their Santa, Karl Marx, even though he does it. His philosophy takes things away from you rather than gives them to you, like Santa Claus. So yes, I'll just go over to Lucas Roses, as I call him, our Antifa hitman. He's been writing ferociously all week about the Socialist Alternative and Uni Students for Climate Justice. So I'll just share his latest one here. So this is Marxists across Australia prepared to coordinate climate rallies. So yeah, there's one in Sydney, Port Macquarie, which is on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, Adelaide, Geelong, Canberra, which Anxious Aussie just streamed, and apparently they're going to do another one next week. That's what at least the Canberra Uni Students for Climate Justice said. In Newcastle, Brisbane, obviously Melbourne, Perth, and then tomorrow there's one in Wollongong as well. And as you can see, the red flags that they're carrying there, clearly the colour of communism. And Lucas names and shames all of the prominent figures here: Canberra, Kim Stern, Ren Somerville and Grace Hill; in Melbourne, Kath Larkin; South Australia, Zaig Jupe and Madeline Edhouse; in Sydney, Hersa Calloy, Lily Campbell and Chloe Rafferty; in Queensland, Priya D, Catherine Robertson and Carl Jackson. Every single organiser, every single spokesperson, all members of the same group that openly states that want to overthrow the government and implement a totalitarian socialist state. And Lucas also did this update today. Dan Andrews begs Marxists to cancel climate protests. Even he's enabled a lot of these far-left extremist protesters. He's quoted here saying, "I don't disagree with them on a range of different points they'd make," Dan Andrews told 3AW on Thursday. So are you confessing then, Dan, that you're a socialist? I don't, but I tell you what, you lose me and you lose a lot of fair-minded Australians who believe in climate change when you have a protest, when you've been told point blank that you are diverting police resources. We should have police and all our emergency service out there tomorrow saving lives, not dealing with protests. That's how you lose people who are formerly with you. You run the risk of jeopardizing that sort of support. All I can say is good. I hope that, Dan, that you sever your support for such socialist groups and causes. I'm not sure if he's even aware that they are actually socialists, but Socialist Alternative, they said in their Red Flag magazine, they called the request by police not to divert resources during a time of emergency as cynical and manipulative. And since police haven't asked for Australian Open or the cricket to be cancelled, neither should the protest, except that the Australian Open and the cricket don't normally have a history of getting violently out of hand like a lot of the far left Marxist protests do. So there's quite a difference there. I'll put the entropy link again in the chat. I am keeping up with the live chat that is on YouTube, and I do from time to time keep up with what is being said on DLive. Now, we've also got, because there has been a lot of fake news and images that have been circulated online relating to the bushfires. Now, I know that in the past we've spoken about how much of a trashy media organisation BuzzFeed is. President Trump famously called it a failing pile of garbage. Well, since they actually fired the garbage journalists and downsized, they've been actually doing some pretty bloody good work. And so I'll just share probably what you'd call the extensive, I'd say, complete guide to what is true and fake about the bushfires online. Now, this was done by Cameron Wilson. So this is the first claim. Claims that various groups, including environmentalists and Muslims, have conspired to start the bushfires. I certainly don't believe that there is a conspiracy. That some arsonists are of Middle Eastern appearance, do have Muslim-sounding names, but it's certainly not, you wouldn't say it was coordinated, certainly not. And environmentalists, yes, they have opposed some hazard reduction burns, but it's not a conspiracy to start the bushfires, so that's correct there. If we go down here, oh, this is just another one there that's been posted. Theory that Australia's bushfires were deliberately lit to clear a way for a high-speed rail network is unfounded. I've heard this theory circulated as well. All you can say is that the fires on the proposed high-speed rail path, all you could say is that's just a coincidence. I mean, they've been talking about high-speed rail in Australia for years and years. Yeah, I'm cynical of whether they'd actually build it, and whether they have this level of planning to make it happen. These and some photographs are not from the 2019-20 Australian bushfire season. I went through this on the Uncockables last night. That photo of the child under the pier, that is from the Tasmania 2013 bushfires. This is from Macedonia. Go in here. Oh yeah, this is the firefighter, Paul, who told the Prime Minister to get fucked. He's not at risk of being dismissed. There was news circulating he was facing disciplinary action. That was fake news. He is actually currently on leave because he's exhausted, as demonstrated by the fact that he lashed out at the Prime Minister. I mean, that was a sign of exhaustion. I certainly wouldn't hold it against him at all if he just heat of the moment did that. I'm sure Scott Morrison can take it on the chin and not take it to heart. The graphic misrepresentation of the blazes. Yes, Australia's Black Summer of Fires. This is just it's called misleading because this doesn't show active bushfires. This is spanning a month. It's not a satellite photo. Then you've got the Greens don't oppose hazard reduction or backburning. Untrue claims that hazard reduction burns or backburning have been reduced or eliminated due to federal Greens Party opposition have been widely circulated on social media and in traditional media outlets now. A removed petition to deregister the Greens, there was a couple of them, cited the political party as the cause of the worst bushfires in Australia's history. These claims are false. The Greens policy supports hazard reduction burns to reduce the impact of wildfire when guided by the best science, ecological emergency service expertise. That is true, and I know that even David Shoebridge has been trying to promote the Greens policy that support hazard reduction burns and backburning, but the Greens are only one part of the wider green and environmental movement. They don't control all the alleged groups, and so I've been at pains to say Greenies and environmentalists, not the Greens Party. And BuzzFeed have also said that it's fake that the Greens have modified their bushfire risk management policy and points to some modification thing. The claim that Selena Gomez donated $5 million to the bushfire relief effort is unverified. I do know that we've had a go at Leonardo DiCaprio in the past for his climate virtue signalling, taking private jets to accept environmental awards, but he's just donated $4 million to the Australian bushfire relief. So I would say bravo, Leo. It's much better to put your money where your mouth is rather than cheap talk. And as I said last night, I think the celebrities are learning that they're empty words, as someone once famously coined, don't do anything, and if you want to make a difference, spend some of your hard-earned Hollywood money. This picture of a shot in a gas mask holding a koala is an altered image. Yes, I mean, you can see that is completely fake. The Liberal National Party created his I'm Scanning of Scott Facebook profile frame prior to the bushfire crisis, so they're claiming that the Liberal Party created this in response to the bushfire crisis. It's been around, I believe, since the the federal election, because this is I'm not sure if you remember Barclay McGain. He was the young Queensland LMP who was targeted for abuse for laughing at another young LMP volunteer he interviewed, saying that we should celebrate Australia itself, not Aboriginal culture that couldn't invent the wheel. He was shamed as a racist for laughing at that fact, because of course facts are racist. But I'm pleased to say that I know that Barclay is doing okay. It hasn't got to him all the abuse, which is nice to see. Widely shared video of firefighters in heavy rain is from November 2018. Let's go down here. Oh yes, these photographs of koalas are not from the current bushfire season, because we've all fallen in love again with koalas this bushfire season. We've seen the horrific photos of them burnt and the thirsty ones. I think everyone will want a pet koala now after this summer. The ABC deleted a Facebook post about a small protest against a local planned burn. This was originally reported by Cauldron Pool, and the Unshackled and other media outlets picked it up. This is actually true. The ABC, well, they deleted it because they couldn't moderate the comments, but they put it back up. And this viral tweet of a kangaroo hugging a woman is not from the Australian bushfires. I haven't seen this one. Kangaroo can't stop hugging the volunteer who saved her life. And this one, this news story exaggerated the role of arson in the bushfires by using misleading figures. Yes, people have said that, well, there's 183 people in New South Wales who've been arrested for causing bushfires, but not deliberately. There's only 24 who've been charged for deliberately starting bushfires, which is arson. So I'd say that's more of a case of just people getting the charges confused, because there are people who've recklessly or accidentally lit bushfires, but not deliberately. So I just want to go to this other story now. This is an example of what I was talking about, a bushfire that was man-made but not deliberately lit. Perth dad admits to accidentally starting fire that blazed across Baldives in Western Australia. A Perth father has apologised for accidentally starting a fire that ripped through Baldives and the surrounding suburbs on Thursday. James Herring from Singleton had been out on a fishing trip and was driving home when a wheel bearing on his boat collapsed. That minor accident sparked a fire that ended up getting much bigger as strong winds fanned the flames. He quickly called fire crews but felt helpless as the fire spread and went into shock as it spiraled out of control. I'm sorry that I caused it even. It was an accident, he said, speaking to reporters. I was worried about the boat or car or anything. I was more worried about people's homes, animals and livestock. I would just like to apologise to all the people who've been affected by the smoke and fires or they've lost fences. Mr. Herring thanked helicopter police, pilots and other emergency services who rushed to attack the blaze. Very scary, and yeah, the reason I felt bad is what's happening over east as well as Kangaroo Island. You know, it's like, wow, what have I just done? Mr. Harrington said he barely slept on Thursday night because he'd been vomiting most of the night. Yeah, I can imagine that'd be a pretty horrific experience. I couldn't live with myself or someone, even someone's dog or sheep, whatever was hurt. Watch and act. The threat from Baldives was downgraded to emergency warning to watch and act on early morning. However, more than 150 firefighters are still battling the blaze, which has torn through 120 hectares of the land. All right, it's time for David, formerly the Young Conservative, to come on now to talk about Aneka Di Manuel, the socialist activist he encountered in 2018. But I'll just play his Now, this was uploaded, it's still on Avi Yemeni's YouTube channel, but it was uploaded originally to his Facebook page at the time, the Young Conservative Avi Yemeni's Facebook page at the time, the Australian News Network's Facebook page, and also the Australian Liberty Alliance Facebook page. It's David and Debbie Robinson, who is the president of both the Australian Liberty Alliance and the Q Society. They are trying to interview Melbourne Uni students about the recent leadership spill, which saw Scott Morrison become Prime Minister. And David is wearing an It's Okay to Be White shirt, which obviously if you go to Melbourne Uni with that on, it's going to trigger a response. So this is an edited version of Anika's best triggered bits. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go.
The Tommy Robinson demonstration.
Avi Yemeni is the cameraman here.
What was it, Lindy?
Yeah, the proudest Jewish
Nazi. Was that the thing that you said at the Tommy Robinson demonstration?
Sorry, why? Sorry, why? What's wrong with this shirt?
What's wrong with this shirt
Is it not okay to be white?
You represent an alt-right movement that attacks.
But I'm not alt-right.
What
What
this
you're wearing
represents.
right now represents all of the disgusting racism and bigotry that's growing.
So would it be different if I wore a shirt that said it's okay to be black?
It's the same.
Am I not allowed to
what
be?
you're wearing is the same thing that fascists wore marching through Charlottesville.
But we're not fascists.
And this guy here, hanging out with Tommy Robinson, one of the main representatives of the far right across Europe, you want to go and defend, people that attack people, that organise rallies to attack minorities. Yeah, no, you guys are fucked.
You do realise that Tommy Robinson left the EDL because he saw the rise of the far right within it and he condemned them. Can I just ask a quick question? Why are we not allowed here?
No, it's not that you're not allowed here. It's what you represent. It's disgusting.
What? Is it? What? That it's not okay to be white?
You can come on this campus, but the people...
Oh, go for it. We're allowed to be here.
People on our campus were handing out leaflets that said it's okay to be white, and they said
So,
that.
well, they don't represent us. So,
you're not allowed to be on here if you're spreading hate speech and stuff.
but this isn't hate speech. It's just saying that it's okay to be white.
Why is hate speech?
How's it hate speech? It's just saying that it's okay. Should I not be?
Anika is the one with the papers there.
How are we racist?
Checkered skirt.
We've come here to ask questions about the leadership spill.
What are the questions that you're asking?
We were going to ask about the young people's opinions on the outcome of the leadership spill, and what do you think about Scott Morrison? What do you think about who he is?
I think they're all fucked.
They're all fucked. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what we've established here is that it's apparently racist to say it's okay to be white. Is that
This T-shirt represents, mate.
this T-shirt
represents an online movement of people who would attack and hate minorities.
But I don't hate
You know
minorities.
what people who were marching in Charlottesville said? They also said it's okay to be white.
You mean the group of 20 or so white supremacists that were condemned by the
last
Literally
year.
drove down and modded someone. That's the people that you stand by side with when you fucking wear shit like that.
No, I just wear this because I say it's okay to be white. It's okay to be myself. Do you think it's not okay for you?
This is bullshit. It's literally a dog whistle. You guys know what you represent. You guys know who you march with. You guys know who you associate yourselves with. This is all bullshit. You're a bunch of racist fuckheads.
Never again! No Nazis! Never again! No Nazis! Never
Apparently, I'm a Nazi.
Yeah, I'm actually not a Nazi.
You do realise this guy's Jewish, right?
Yeah, so there you go. So that's Aneka there. David, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. How you going?
Good. I'll just bring you up there. So I've just played, as I informed my audience before, Aneka's best bits. It's fair to say that when you went to Melbourne Uni with that shirt on, it wasn't really a social experiment. You knew exactly what the reaction would be.
Yeah, well, it was expected. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily. Well, you could say it was intended to be provocative, but we did go on to interview students about the leadership spill. But we sort of thought, oh, yeah, it would make for some good footage, some good content, because obviously walking onto a university campus of, let's say, that caliber of politics, it's going to stir up a bit of an adverse reaction. So yeah, I guess you could say it was inflammatory.
Now, as I mentioned, this was uploaded to multiple Facebook pages associated with the Australian Liberty Alliance, and including RV Yemeni's and also your Young Conservative page at the time, and I noticed that a lot of the students who were featured in that video started trolling it, and obviously they were mass reporting it, because a week later your Facebook page was removed for community standards violation. That's all the info you got.
Yeah, no, yeah, it didn't give me a reason why. It just said your page has been unpublished, your page doesn't follow community guidelines, and that was that. That was the end of it. No warning. I do remember when I had the video up on my personal page, on the Young Conservative, and also on Arby's page and whatnot on Facebook. There were a number of fake accounts that were commenting, and they had profile pictures to the extent of calf and no room for racism, and then anime photos and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to not only mass report with their personal accounts, but also get a horde of fake accounts to do their mass reporting and their trolling and whatnot. And that's been a tactic they've been using for a while. And even before that video, all over my page, I had multiple fake accounts commenting and reporting, and I had a couple of things taken down that I never got banned for. But yeah, that's the case, isn't it?
That was back, 2018, when it was more easy to create fake sock accounts. I know that Facebook has cracked down on a lot of that, but there could be this, what do you call it, mass reporting warfare back then. And I should also point out, you mentioned CAF, that's the Campaign Against Racism and Fascism, that organised most of the protests against patriot rallies and right-wing speakers who came to Melbourne, such as Marley Yiannopoulos, Lawrence Southern, Stefan Molyneux, Nigel Farage and Jordan Peterson. That group has been taken over now by the Socialist Alternative. So it's another front group for the Socialist Alternative.
Yeah, well, back in the day, I mean, I went to the Milo event in Perth in 2017. I was at Nigel Farage, and I saw a lot of the footage from Stefan Molyneux and Lawrence Southern. It's sort of a pattern in it. It's very similar to what we saw in the March for Men as well. Actually, they they're to give them the benefit of the doubt, there are a lot of fringe groups that associate themselves with CAF, but a lot of the time it would often end in arrests and finding weapons. And there was pepper spray at one point at the Nigel Farage event when I was there on Collins Street. Yeah, Anika, she's openly associated herself with CAF in the past. I'm not sure exactly how far that spans back, but at least when I was living in Melbourne for a year and a half, she was a front woman for CAF, and she'd be there when the arrests would happen, and when at the Patriots rally when an old man was knocked over with a metal pole on the head, she was there. And she doesn't seem to be held accountable for any of that. She's getting a free ride with the media, painting her as a student climate activist. And it's selective reporting. They're never going to tell you that the organisers, the vast majority of the organisers of these marches, not only in Melbourne but also around Australia, have links to far left extremists.
Yeah, and mainstream media, they don't mention this at all. Even a lot of the conservative commentators have taken a while to, because our Antifa writer Lucas Roses, he's expressed his frustrations on this show that this is all publicly accessible information, that these protesters are linked to socialist, Trotskyist, revolutionist groups, and yet they're just called climate protesters or anti-racist protesters, or I'm not sure if they've infiltrated, not to any of our knowledge, they've tried to infiltrate the vegan movement yet. That was another event, Melbourne event that you were at, what was it called? The day, I just remember the name that we gave it, the Day of the Soy. When you were still in Melbourne, you tried to interview one of the vegans.
Yeah, I did that on my personal account, because obviously my page had been deleted a good 6 months before that. That was back in April on Flinders Street. I happened to not have work that day, and I was nearby, and I thought, I'll go check it out. And you know, I remember rocking up, and they were quite hostile. You know, even, you know, I mean, obviously the media showed them chaining themselves up and chanting and yelling, but it was pretty hostile. I do remember there was one bloke, because I walked right up there. I thought, you know, I'm not having a bar of these guys. And one guy got pretty aggressive with me, almost physical, and only stopped because the cops intervened. And yeah, the live stream that I did with one or two of the protesters, you know, I sort of said to them, I said, look, what do you think you're doing here? You know, you're blocking traffic, you're causing disruption to Melbourne's infrastructure, people are being turned around on Flinders Street. I said, how do you think this is drawing people to your cause? And, oh, we're spreading awareness, or, you know, this needs to be done. And I'm like, well, why? Why? They don't have an answer for me.
I mean, vegans and Extinction Rebellion and the socialist climate groups, they could not have done enough in the past year to piss the public off. Like, I remember after that vegan protest, everyone said, oh, I'm going to have a steak for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we're making light of how much of a failure their activism is, but the vegans, for example, they were terrorizing farmers and cafe owners. And it's right to call them terrorists, because farmers were terrified from them. They just mass invaded their farms.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I brought up in that live stream I did on my personal page back in April. I think it's one of the first things I said to one of the women that was holding the signs. I said, so you stand by the people who, you know, invaded the Gippy Goat Cafe, who sent them threats, who stole their lambs, who damaged their property, who set their back shed on fire. I said, so you condone that, do you? And they're saying, oh, well, it was necessary. It had to happen because these people is, you know, oh, you care about that, but you don't care about the, you know, thousands of animals. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, and their counter argument to that was basically, well, animals are suffering more than they did, so, you know, so what? So yeah, I think it would be fair to call them domestic terrorists.
Now you've moved back to your hometown of Perth. You just share your thoughts on your personal Facebook account now. So you gained a large following in 2018, became quite well known and also hated. But you've taken a more private approach this year.
Yeah, well, I thought about starting the page back up, but then, you know, it would involve trying to get all of those followers back. And it was, you know, in terms of my employment at the time as well in Melbourne, it was a little bit, risky if I were to go out and try and do things for optics and whatnot. I'm not saying it's all about optics, but, you know, you need to have an audience. It was a pretty sort of dirty thing to get back into in terms of the job that I'd got in November of 2018. You know, I couldn't risk being in the public eye again, so I just decided not to start up a Facebook page. But I am still, you know, privately on my own page sharing my thoughts and whatnot, as you said. You know, even so, I work for a government department now in WA, so it's not a good idea for me to be back out in the public eye.
Well, I wouldn't recommend Facebook if you're going to make a public profile again, because it would probably just get deleted again. Avi Yemeni, he had 3 Facebook pages deleted to my memory. The first one was deleted because he published Osman Faruqi's phone number. The second one was deleted when he went to some academic's house who had criticised, and I think the third one was part of the post-Christchurch purge. So after that, he just said, fuck it, I'm done with Facebook.
Yeah.
And now, what is Perth like in terms of, well, first of all, I said at the beginning of the show, there are some emergency warnings for both bushfires and floods in Western Australia. It's a blend of both common Australian natural disasters there.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm about 6 kilometres away from a big fire at the moment. That there's an emergency warning that went out about an hour and a half ago. I was driving up from Armidale in the southeast, and I saw the massive plume of smoke. Oh God, here we go again. And that is in the Coburn area, in the sort of outer southern suburbs. There was another one in the far outer southern suburbs in Baldivis, which is about 15 k's from where I am now, yesterday. And I noticed I do still follow some, old school friends who are at unis like University of Western Australia and Curtin University, and they're a part of those climate action groups. And I did see one person who I knew from school, immediately it was, this is climate change on our doorstep, and, the Mark McGowan government's not doing enough to fight climate change. And then 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, after the fire had been put out, there was a news segment on a man who they say accidentally started the fire because a wheel came off.
Yeah, I just covered that story before.
Yeah. So and he's gone out and apologised, and I put the link to that video on this guy's post saying, climate change is at our doorstep, and he just deleted the thing after about 10 minutes and a couple of arguments. So yeah, but there were some very significant fires about 4 weeks ago up in Yanship. I think 2 people lost their lives, and the old Yanship petrol station was destroyed, and I think about 15 homes. So yeah, WA's been feeling it a bit as well.
And I interviewed at the beginning of last year Dennis Hutz, who is probably the most prominent Perth Patriot activist, and he said there's plenty of socialist and vegan activists in Perth. He gets around and trolls a lot of them. He's able to get away with it in Victoria. Well, a lot of the previous stunts this year, Neil Erickson has done, for example, he's been arrested and charged or moved on pretty quickly. But Dennis is able to get out and about. So everyone just thinks that Melbourne is the centre of socialist, far-left activism, but every city has it, including Perth. So all those people who say nuke Melbourne, clean up your own backyards first of leftists.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, obviously Melbourne's got a higher calibre of socialist groups and communist groups and whatnot. But no, Perth and WA definitely has its fair share. I mean, we've got our Marxist bookshop in Fremantle that I walk past quite a lot.
Yeah, Fremantle that's probably leftist central. I think that was their council was the first one to move Australia Day.
I may be wrong. I'm not sure. It may have changed in the last state election, but it's a predominantly Labor and Greens held seat, and the Greens have held it at least once or twice in the past decade, I'm pretty sure. But in terms of socialist groups in Perth, they are predominantly centred at the unis, namely Curtin University and the University of WA. I've had run-ins with I've had one run-in with a vegan group at Curtin University in Perth Southeast, and that was because actually one of the activists there, I went to school with him, and he'd actually threatened me earlier last year in April when I did that live stream, because he was a part. What do they call it? They're Dominion, the Dominion group.
Yeah, that's the Dominion movement.
They have a stronghold at Curtin University, and I had a confrontation with him when I was there back in November last year, because he'd threatened to send vegans to my, his vegan mates in Melbourne to my house and everything, because I'd done that live stream. And I said, well, you do you. That's illegal. I'm just, I'm exercising my right to free speech. I'm criticising them for blocking the roads and causing havoc. And what happened? It wasn't a very big deal, but basically, because of the argument got a bit heated, we both got moved off campus by security guards. Curtin at the incident in November. So the Dominion, from what I hear, Dominion has a stronghold at Curtin. They've got they're a registered student union there. I'm not sure about UWA, but they have got their various Socialist Alternative Marxist groups there. You see the posters everywhere, the Marxism Conference. Yeah, so to answer that question, yes, Perth has got a significant degree of socialists, not as much as Melbourne, but they're centred 90% in the unis, and the rest of them are in Fremantle, probably.
I commented earlier in the show about Dan Andrews pleading with the Marxists not to protest, and you can't help but obviously we want the emergency personnel to be out fighting the fires, including the police, but you can't help note the irony that this is something he's enabled, and all of a sudden he's like, no, please, I beg you, don't. They're not going to listen to him anyway. They still want him gone, but you have to see the irony of what you created.
Yeah, well, I mean, I reckon the issue there with Dan Andrews is, his calls to call off the protest. I'm pretty sure he only said that this morning. It's come after.
His Victoria Police and his ministers had earlier in the week.
They did. I remember seeing that. Yeah, but that's what I was getting to. I think he's doing this to save face, because there's been plenty of calls from. I mean, even if you look at some of the media articles, it sort of seems like they're backing that idea to, reschedule that protest. I've seen a lot of people on my feed as well, sort of calling for this protest to be rescheduled. But Dan Andrews is saying that because, again, he's saving face. He's trying to appeal to, it's kind of like when conservatives sort of try to cuck out to the left on certain issues, as if they're going to suddenly turn around and stop criticising them. It's the same kind of principle here with Andrews.
Yeah, exactly. And as I showed before, Uni Students for Climate Justice, they mobilise completely on Facebook. And we've seen in 2019, it mainly happened after the Christchurch massacre, all prominent Australian nationalists and patriots were purged off Facebook. And it's taken a while for the movement to recover, but if they were deleted off Facebook, Socialist Alternative, Uni Students for Climate Justice, obviously if government authorities are concerned about them draining resources, then they could just simply tap Facebook on the shoulder and say, pull this group.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the Christchurch massacre. We're all aware of media bias and bias in the establishment and all that. That's a whole other argument. But you have to think back to just after the Christchurch shooting in Victoria, where Dan Andrews announced that they'd be cracking down on right-wing extremism, and it's the establishment that gets to determine what is extreme, what is not extreme. So, Arvey went down. Obviously, Blair Cottrell went down well before that. The Lad Society's gone down. So yeah, no, it's part of their crackdown on so-called extremism. But who are the proprietors of of what is considered extremism, what is considered moderate? I'd consider Arvey Yemeni pretty moderate, but he has been accused of being an extremist by the left, and he's been called far right by the media, and obviously
it's extreme far right now.
Extreme. How much more extreme do you get?
Super mega ultra extreme far right. That's the term that we invented. So yes, thank you for joining me tonight, David, and coming out of your, I guess, retirement from public life, because yes, as soon as I saw, and I'll just share, this is her being interviewed by 7 News, Aneka, and you can see the posters behind: no racism, no borders, no fascist politicians. So this is the platform that she's been given, but
her little Trojan horse to bring people into hardline left-wing politics.
But it was good that both of our memories were triggered from that famous video back in 2018, which you featured in, which as I showed our audience before, just exposed her that all she can say is just swear and call people racist, and then chant about no Nazis. That's pretty much all their vocabulary is.
Yeah, well, I mean, when people start calling Scott Morrison and people in the Liberal Party Nazis, you know that they're full of shit.
Well, take it easy, and we'll catch up. Maybe not on air, but definitely off air in the future.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in Melbourne a little bit every 5 months or so. So yeah, thanks a
Okay.
lot. You good luck. Good luck.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
That was David, the young conservative. Some people might call him a blast from the past. It's funny that he's so young and like he's still got a baby face, and I'm referring to him as retired. And now we are going to be joined now for the final half hour of the show by Martin Hartwig, the new deputy editor of the Unshackled. So as you can see now, I'm just calling him now. I haven't found a way to mute that very loud Skype call. I know it annoys me and our viewers. Martin, you're on camera now.
How's it going?
Yeah. What are you eating?
It is a home-delivered ice cream.
Home delivered?
Yes, I will not name the brand. It is an Australian brand.
Are you pretending you're in an Uber Eats ad?
I just got to keep my temperature down because I can't have the fan on. So, yeah. Good to see that David's doing well.
Yes. And I know, because I was going to message him earlier this week saying, do you remember Aneka? And he'd already posted that he remembers. And because though like a lot of this type of footage, encounters between patriots and far left groups gets deleted from Facebook and the original YouTube channel, it eventually finds its way back online in some form.
Well, to me, Aneka is one of the monsters that you fight in the Witcher game series. There's my first gamer reference. They're like subterranean troglodytes. So I think that's a good analogy to draw there, I think. Go back into your hole, Aneka.
Well, it rained all over her parade tonight. So you could say, if you were religious, that God sent her a very powerful message.
Not powerful enough. Communism's killed far too many people for people like that to be just traipsing around the country completely unopposed.
There was no Amazing Grace for her tonight. There was only being, as it's called, Peter Graced.
Don't go there, Tim.
There's already been a few references to that tonight. Now on to the substance of tonight's program. Obviously, the Unshackled, and you in particular as our deputy editor, we've been trying to get out as much real factual news about the bushfires and its true causes all throughout the past 2 weeks. Because I went through that BuzzFeed article before, which has, and it's fair to say that, the what you'd call right-wing fake news about the bushfires, they're mainly conspiracy theorists, like the Highway One, and that are some Muslim and environmental deliberate conspiracy. But the ones they debunked that the left are using to promote climate change, there are ones that have gone super viral, such as the images which are supposedly from the 2019-20 bushfire season. Some of them are from previous Australian bushfire seasons, some are not even from Australia. And of course, a lot of those satellite maps of fires are not real-time what's burning in Australia.
Right. Yeah, no, I will admit there is a lot of... I'm getting an echo. Is that... Can you hear that echo?
From you or me?
I don't know. I've got it in my headphones.
I'm not... only if people complain about it in the chat, then that's when we should pay attention.
Right. Well, it just kind of throws me off when I'm mid-rant. Yeah, there has been a lot of jumping to conclusions on social media. I feel like, we do play a part in facilitating a discussion. I think it's important to recognize that there is a lot of misinformation going around on both sides. And I will state right now, my goal in writing that ABC story was not to promote any fake news agenda, right? My motivation is to facilitate a discussion and to get people asking questions. I think it's good that people look at, okay, well, why are so many of these fires in the pathway of land that the government was going to buy for the Clara project?
Well, as I said, that the reason why I don't believe that is because the government, they've talked about high-speed rail for years, and they still haven't built it.
Yeah.
Do you really think in this current state of government dysfunction, they're really going to be able to build it now?
Yeah,
I mean, Daniel Andrews is having enough trouble building freeways and metro rail tunnels, and let's not forget Gladys's the light rail through George Street in Sydney, over time, over budget, broke down on the first day.
Yeah, I think you make a good point that it requires a level of government competence and coordination that they're probably just not capable of. So, but it's still good to ask questions. Now, I think one of the things that I try to do is I don't try to offer all of the answers when the content that I create. I give people the stems to go down and research for themselves. I try to reference everything that I refer to in articles. I think that's very important. So a lot of the mainstream news are I've noticed half the time they don't even name their source, because that's journalism protecting their source. You look back at the ABC Alex Mann hit job that they did on Lad Society, which I'm no great fan of, but I will point out that so much of the evidence that they claimed that they had, they wouldn't provide that evidence, right?
Oh, that was to do with the from what I recall, the meta data that proved Brenton Tarrant commented on United Patriots Front and True Blue Crew pages. They said, we're not going to publish the metadata, but believe us, it's we've checked it out.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty shaky precedent to set for media, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Whether it's true or not,
we've seen through it's mainly on Twitter. This I call it social media spamming, where you have all these hashtags: ScoMo resign, Morrison fires, Lib spill. They're wanting the Governor General or the Queen to sack the Prime Minister and the government.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's been out for a while, and by now the only people they even just took Sam Hyde off Twitter this week. Come on, can't we have any fun? It's pretty obvious. We rant about this a lot. It's a left-wing media, but really it is because and all of these academic groups and whatever, and they're all buddies with each other on there. There's a very cynical manipulation of the media in that they can push a hashtag to trending, and then the mainstream media picks it up. And reports on
because
it, and they pretend like it's
the social media
grassroots.
spam is picked up by the mainstream media, and Twitter is in no way representative of broader Australia. And just because you get lib spill trending doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, Lucas has pointed out that the left-wing outrage mob have made that trend probably three times now, based on exactly zero evidence. They've just tried to will it into existence through hyping it on Twitter. So
and there hasn't just been ScoMo derangement syndrome. There's been Rupert Murdoch derangement syndrome, where they're blaming Rupert Murdoch's newspapers and Sky News solely for inhibiting climate change, decarbonisation policies. Even the fact that, well, you have to pay money to buy his newspapers, and now all of his websites in Australia, except for news.com.au, which is actually a left-wing website, they're all behind a paywall. So how can they be influencing people if you have to pay for it? And of course, Sky News is only on Foxtel. There's some shows that are replayed to regional Australia through Win, but every other mainstream media, or you would say new media outlet, is all of the left. The Guardian, that has been pumping out non-stop climate change links to the bushfires. There's the New Daily, which Sam Maiden is the political reporter. She's been making sure that she's being amplifying ScoMo's every stumble. Peter Van Onselen, the political editor of Network 10, he's even been going after ScoMo's advisors online, and now this week he's hosting the project. There's the Crikey, which was founded by Stephen Mayne. There's the Saturday Paper, which was founded by left-wing businessman Maury Schwartz.
Even satire in Australia is I would say there's a left-wing bent towards it. What have we got?
The Batuta Advocate, the Chaser.
Yeah,
there's another one, the Shovel.
If you've been following what the Chaser's been saying, like they're funny guys, but they've really been pushing the ScoMo thing. Most of it's hilarious, like the handshaking, forcing people to shake his hands. Like that was just a
PR that's been stupid. Like, obviously, the first time it didn't work, just end it now. Like, it's obviously not going to work.
Yeah, but one of the things I've noticed is...
I wonder if, like, because next, you know that next the feminists will probably say that involuntarily shaking someone's hand is a form of sexual assault.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is that it doesn't matter what he does, they find a way to ridicule him. And the mistake that he made was capitulating it all. They capitalized on that even more. He made some statement saying, I've always been, supported climate change as a cause of the bushfires, and
But to his credit, he's saying there's going to be no increase in our carbon reduction policies. That's what he's maintained. He's sort of trying to balance, like, seem that they're doing enough, but not doing too much to completely destroy the economy. Which is sort of he's trying to have a bob both ways, in which, of course, you end up winning over no one.
Yeah, he was too afraid to do anything. It was pretty obvious right from the start that because of his natural lack of empathy and genuine likability, I don't know whether it was upon the advice of his, I don't know if you call it his advisors, his cabinet, whatever. He stayed away from the media and for as long as possible, because they knew this was going to happen. Where basically no matter what he does, they'll find a way to make him look bad.
Going back to Murdoch derangement syndrome, you reported on this Twitter activist group, or that's a more flattering title you could give it. It's basically more a bullying and harassment group. It works alongside Sleeping Giants Oz in harassing advertisers and sponsors of News Corp, publications and broadcasters, and also they were behind the campaign to try and get advertisers to pull out of Alan Jones's program after his sock down the throat comment about Jacinta Ardern. They send out, they put out a list of advertisers and get their followers to send out mass email campaigns, and they've been deleted from Facebook because they are bullying and harassers. They claim that their free speech is being suppressed, but anyone, because a lot of these businesses aren't in the loop about how these campaigns work, and so they easily freak, and a lot of their just low-level employees can get quite stressed handling these abusive complaints.
Yeah, I think I've done a bit of thinking about Like if you've read the actual article, my conclusion is that essentially there's not much that we can do to actually, put a stop to it. And I don't think we necessarily should put a stop to it. I think that...
well, you can make secondary boycotts illegal. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that that is a way that, because it is a secondary boycott, it's not saying boycott News Corp or boycott 2GB. It's threatening to boycott the advertisers who advertise. That's what you term a secondary boycott.
Yeah. Yeah, and I covered that in the article, and basically the point was there's not much that we necessarily should do, but having done a bit of thinking about it, there is probably an opening for an activist group to prepare some sort of information packages for businesses which we know are currently being targeted. So they have Sleeping Giants, for example. They have an app where they have every 2GB Alan Jones sponsor listed, and they try to coordinate campaigns to, and half the time, the people who are harassing these companies, they're not actual customers. They just pretend to be actual customers. So the way to counter this, in my mind, would be to organize actual customers to say, hey, I support you and I support Alan Jones. Please don't give in to this bullying campaign.
Well, Alan Jones, his ratings haven't slided. His ad revenue from his show has slided, but not his actual audience.
Yeah, well, and as we well know, ad revenue is pretty crucial to, to the viability of media. So they are having an impact over time. That will if they don't find new sponsors, that is going to have an impact on their bottom line. So what they're doing is, it is working. So yeah, there's not a lot you can do. But so what I just suggested was information packages for those businesses that are being targeted. But that's all I have really on that topic. Like, I couldn't really care less about these people. Like, you look at the kind of stuff that they post and the way they talk, they're clearly insufferable people.
And they spend most of their time at their computer, or they're what you call keyboard warriors or armchair activists who can make a noise from their home desk. But when it comes to, and this is why the Scott Morrison coined the term quiet Australians, because the only poll or opinion voicing that matters is the votes of Australians on election day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some of the articles from this week, or
we might wrap it up now.
Yeah, cool.
Because I've been going for an hour and 15. Obviously, there has been other things happening with the Iran United States tensions, with the tit for tat strikes in Iraq. Trump has basically said, that's it for now. We're not going to be taking further action against Iran, and Iran's missiles in response to the killing of General Qasem Soleimani was pretty, you would say, meager. And so World War III is cancelled.
I'm a little bit disappointed, frankly.
Oh, I don't want war.
I don't want war either, but yeah. I don't want war.
And obviously there's Megxit with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle divorcing from the royal family, and the Queen described 2019 as a bumpy year. Many people were unsure whether she was implying to UK politics or her own family, but 2020 has started with an earthquake in the royal family, and of course the Wallace Simpson and Yoko Ono comparisons to Meghan Markle have continued.
Yeah, I I couldn't really care less about the royals.
Well, they do cost the British taxpayers a fair amount of money.
It just reminds me of that song, "You'll Never Live Like Common People." You know the song I'm talking about. They're like they'll pretend like, oh yeah, you know, I'm likable, I'm just like you, but in the end, like they've always got that little escape hatch. They can always go back to the cushy life if they decide that they want to do that. It's almost like she's decided that she's going to try and walk in Princess Di's footsteps. She's like, well, if I'm going to get assassinated, I may as well do the rest of it too. But yeah, no.
We have covered the other news and global developments on the Unshackled, but definitely based on the reactions that we're getting, people are tuning into us mainly for our bushfire coverage, and that will obviously continue. I mentioned at the beginning the warnings for particularly Victoria, but also New South Wales, South Australia, and Western Australia. So we're not out of the woods yet, pardon the pun. We should praise our first responders, emergency services, particularly the volunteer firefighters, because they're the ones who've made sure that, most importantly, human life has been saved. There's been 28 deaths as the time of this broadcast. All of them are a tragedy, but they've done a great job in evacuating people. And as I said last night, if you're going to donate to the bushfire relief, I'd suggest donating to local volunteer firefighting organisations, because they're the ones who it doesn't stop for them. And obviously you would say the firefighter who hasn't stopped since September is Tony Abbott. He was at a local pub last night. He wasn't stopping just to enjoy a few bevies. He poured them for the other crew members.
Yeah, Abbott's a good guy. I got a lot of time for him.
Yeah, and I think we're sort of Tony Abbott is unemployed at the moment. He has got his parliamentary pension, but he could be sitting on a corporate board if he wanted to, getting even more money. But he's chosen to dedicate his time since then to, and as we saw over the past weekend, he entered a burning house to prevent further bushfires. So I think we've all sort of reflected this week saying, wow, we really squandered Tony Abbott as the Prime Minister.
Yes. I think a lot of people want him back. But, you know, he's done his service, so he shouldn't have to cop that abuse again. But it's one of those things where you can look back and go, oh man, how good did we have it? Wasn't perfect, but, you know, it's better than the shit fight that we've got now.
Yeah, definitely. Politics is even more toxic now, and of course we don't just have fake or unrepresentative opinion on social media, but as the lead up to the federal election showed, that not even the polling companies get it right. And of course, that's why Tony Abbott was removed, because of bad polling, which, as we saw in the last federal election, turned out to be wrong.
Yeah, polling. There's probably a lot of manipulation of polls, trying to lead people to conclusions and create this like self-fulfilling prophecy. I wouldn't listen to polls. But yeah, so much of politics is, and this is the problem. There's no backbone, right? If you're so dependent upon polls. Like, tell me what to think, tell me what to believe, and I'll believe it for you and show what a good leader I am. That's not leadership. You know, you need to have some kind of your own moral compass to be an actual leader. What we have now are managers. There's my profound statement.
Seems so. Crisis PR managers, if you want to be more cynical.
Yeah, and they're not very good at it. I think there's a lot of disconnect. Like, And that's so obvious with ScoMo. Like, he's so out of touch. And Shorten was no better. For someone who's supposedly of the people, you know, he can't even drive a manual. Get out of here. Australia doesn't
Well,
want you.
he crashed his car into, was it 4 parked cars a while back. He claimed it's because he spilt his coffee, not because he was on a mobile phone, which he was also caught doing on a separate occasion.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're digressing here, so I'll let you go, Martin. Thank you for your indispensable work this week, and we'll continue to be added in the next week. So keep visiting the Unshackled.net on a regular basis for our latest news and analysis on the bushfires.
Thanks, Tim. See you.
Good night. And that brings us to the end of the weekly summer edition of WilmsFront. I'll be back next Friday evening at the same time, 7 p.m. Melbourne time, on the Tim Wilms YouTube and DLive channel. You can also see the archive of episodes on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel, and you can also catch up via podcast. Visit timwilms.com for the podcast platforms that we're on, and also has links to my own social media. I'm on facebook.com/WilmsFront, twitter.com/WilmsFront, gab.com/TimWilms, minds.com/TimWilms, and I also have a Telegram channel, t.me/WilmsFront, which is also linked to a Telegram chat as well. There is plenty of action going on Telegram. That's where it is at the moment, is in an uncensored place, along with Gab as well. So definitely Gab and Telegram emerging as the two greatest social media places where you can have uncensored, unafraid conversations, unlike Facebook and Twitter. I won't tonight promote the Unshackled's membership and donation options because I don't think it's probably the most appropriate time. I would encourage you all to donate, as I said, to the firefighters who are continuing to firefight during this time. They certainly need our help to keep fighting, and also to take care of them afterwards, because they are exhausted. I'll be back on air next Thursday with the Uncockables, which is on the summertime 9 p.m. Melbourne time on the Uncockables YouTube and DLive channel, and you can also see the archive on the uncockables.com. So thank you everyone for your company tonight. Thank you to the Versatile Cowboy and David the Young Conservative for coming on tonight, for providing us both live coverage and analysis of the Uni Students for Climate Justice Socialist Alternative front group. Some real on-the-ground facts and reporting about them. And thank you for Martin, my deputy, for joining me at the end. So stay safe, enjoy your weekend, and as I said before, keep visiting the Unshackled.net because we are publishing as regularly as we can at the moment.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting the Unshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.